252-321-8474. Carolina Arthritis Center.
where your journey to health begins.
Good morning, good morning, Pitt County and beyond. You're welcome and you're tuned into Pitt Perspectives on Awesome Radio 107.5 FM and 1570 AM WECU. Pitt Perspectives is the show where we share stories, celebrate culture, and inspire community here in Pitt County and the surrounding areas. So we are so glad that you're joining us from wherever you are, whether you are in Farmville, Bethel, Aden, Winterville, or tuning in all the way from West Africa. We see you and we appreciate you. As always, I'm here with my co-host, my half amazing, mostly annoying co-hosts, AY and Patrick. What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
Good morning, Pitt County. This is Ayodeji, AY, as you know, and I'm happy to be here this morning. And it's going to be an amazing show. This is that show where we talk about culture, community, connection, and we are honored to bring stories and voices that matter here from Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah.
Deputy Patrick.
Oh my God. Oh
One
my
to the
days.
two to the three. Say it.
Once
say it.
once again, welcome to Pitt Perspectives on Awesome Radio. This is Patrick on the one, the two, the three. The Awesome Radio. It's a great Saturday morning. The sun is out. It's beautiful outside. The studio is amazing. There's this great feeling we have in studio.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
always
amazing.
amazing,
Yeah,
yeah.
it always is, and it makes our Saturday mornings. And we hope it makes yours too. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
best show on radio
Yes.
on Saturday mornings.
If I do
Yeah.
say
So
so
welcome,
myself.
welcome. And also shout out to Awesome Radio 107.5 FM, 1570 AM WECU. You can also listen live at awesomeradio.org/WECU. And if you want to call in and share your thoughts, hit us up at 252-756-2008 or email us your stories at hello.pitperspectives@gmail.com.
Yes, awesomeradionetwork.org
Yeah.
/WECU. Yes, and our phone lines would be open after we are done with the community news. So, as always, we'll head over to our top community news presented by Carolina Arthritis Center. Let's take it away, guys.
All right. The first news I have here this morning says Pitt commissioners approve $420.6 million budget for 2025-2026.
Yes, in just 6 minutes, Pitt County Commissioners passed a $420.6 million budget for the 2025-26 fiscal year, slightly more than the originally proposed $414 million. The property tax rate remains unchanged at 56.63 cents per $100 valuation. The increase includes more funding for Pitt County Schools, Pitt Community College, and the Sheriff's Office, along with support for the Farmers Market and Council on Aging. Public education advocates like teacher Sarah Wall. We are glad to see classified school staff receive overdue raises, even though the schools didn't get the full amount requested. The budget also includes a 3% raise for county employees, 9 new staff positions, and capital investments in Pitt Community College. Sheriff Paula Dance voiced concern about changes to clothing allowances for non-uniform staff, but no changes were made during the hiring.
Yeah, and then we have case named the first chief of police history.
Yes, KZ Thomas has become the first woman to serve as deputy chief of the Greenville Police Department. Her journey began as a grocery store cashier before joining the force 20 years ago. She rose through the ranks, most recently serving as commander of investigations and administrative services. Thomas credits retired Lieutenant Susan Baz and Sheriff Paula Dance for inspiring her path in law enforcement. As deputy chief, Thomas will assist Chief Richard Tyndall and lead internal operations. Her promotion, effective June 28th, marks a milestone for women in policing. The department now has 28 women, a rise from just 5 in 1987. We'll continue after the break on Awesome Radio.
I am Miss Mary Cox. I'm Killer Thigpen's mother from Awesome Radio.
I'm Dr. Kyle Horner from Carolina Arthritis Center. Living with arthritis or joint pain doesn't have to limit your life. At Carolina Arthritis Center in Greenville, we're Eastern North Carolina's only private, single specialty rheumatology clinic dedicated exclusively to your joint health. Our experienced team offers comprehensive care all under one roof. From consultations and joint injections to on-site laboratory, X-ray, bone density testing, and our specialized infusion suite. No more running around to multiple locations for your arthritis evaluation. When you need expert rheumatology care, choose the specialist who focus solely on conditions like yours every single day. Carolina Arthritis Center, where your mobility and comfort are our main priority. Call 252-321-8474 or visit carolina-arthritis.com to schedule your consultation today. Again, that number is 252-321-8474. Carolina Arthritis Center, where your journey to health begins.
Yes, welcome back. Welcome back. We're still live on Awesome Radio, and it's still Pete's Perspective. So, fellas, today is actually a special day for one of us. Special shout out to Kara Gordon. Today is her birthday. Happy birthday, Kara! Yeah. Yes. So Kara is a very hardworking member of the team, someone very near and dear to our hearts. We wish you a very special and blessed day, Kara, and we hope you have fun wherever you are at. Kara is also I think, the CEO of Kuru Creative, creative agency. So shout out to you, Kara. Yes, moving on the community news recap presented by Carolina Arthritis Center. Let's take it away.
All right. The next news here says Worthington Road closure begins June 11 for roundabout project.
Yes, part of Waddington Road in Pitt County will be closed starting June 11 for drainage work tied to the construction of a new roundabout. The closure is expected to last until August 8th. Drivers will be rerouted through Old Star Road and surrounding detours. Officials urge caution when navigating the area. So if you're going around about Pitt County or around Waddington Road next week, be aware that parts of the road will be closed for drainage work tied to the construction of a new roundabout. Yes, let's take it away.
Yeah, and then we have over 1.7 Pitt County students graduate in Minges Coliseum ceremonies.
Yes, more than 1,700 Pitt County school seniors are graduating this weekend at ECU's Minges Coliseum. Altogether, 1,920 students make up the class of 2025. Among them, 99 earned associate degrees, 646 graduated with honors, and 420 are North Carolina scholars. Over $18 million in scholarships were awarded. Most graduates plan to continue their education, with 72 heading into the military. Superintendent Steve Lassiter praised the class for their resilience and leadership. Families and community members filled and are still filling the venue to celebrate each school's milestone moment. So the graduation started yesterday and would continue from the rest of today at ECU's Minges Coliseum. So shout out and special shout out to all the graduating high school seniors. Yes, we love you all. Yes, let's take it away.
All right. The next news says Greenville Fire Rescue welcomes new engine to Station 2.
Yes, Greenville Fire Rescue celebrated its newest fire truck with a ceremonial push-in at Station 2. The $1.3 million Pierce Enforcer engine comes with updated safety features and equipment to better serve the medical district, including a 750-gallon water tank and improved hydrant access. Fire Chief Brock Davenport said the new truck has already responded to calls since going into service earlier this week. It replaces a larger ladder truck, making it easier to navigate tight spaces. Officials say this investment reflects the city's commitment to public safety.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the next one we have is a news. So this is a good one for us. We have
G-U-S-C, G-U-S-C. Yes.
Yeah, we have Greenville United FC dominates with a 4-1 victory over T Road FC.
Yes, Greenville United FC delivered a commanding 4-1 win over Tobacco Road FC on Tuesday night at JP2 Stadium. The crowd was buzzing as always, especially with support from the Box Brigade and local students attending schools out night. The Bucks are on the road tonight facing Charlottetown Hops FC at 7:30 p.m. I think that will be in Pineville, just outside Charlotte. So, guys, you guys were saying the other time, and I actually had it in the community. Someone was telling me you guys are ranting about how every time y'all come to the games we win. Bro, y'all shouldn't jinx.
Happened again, though.
Bro, can you shut up? Bro, but it was fun, man. And we talked about the chants. We were gonna, do the sha la 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 Greenville GUFs, and it was fun too.
Yeah.
And then I learned a new chant in Spanish that I don't exactly know the words. Maybe if anyone listening knows the words, they can, reach out to us. Vamos de amor
Hopefully our listeners know.
So I actually went to read up on that chant and found out it's been around since the early 1900s. It started out in Peru, and then it took on, became so huge that there has been, and it's amazing, essentially, especially talking about stories. We're talking about stories today, how things like that can sort of start out from a small place and then take roots and become, something. And I also remember I remixed the song. Every time the referee would do a bad call, I'll be like, referee, you need glasses. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And shout out to the kids too. The kids brought a lot of energy on the day too.
Yeah.
I think it was 4-1 on the night.
Yes.
And interestingly, one of the guys who plays on our team who scored the goal, they just posted on the link on Greenville United, met me after the game and was telling me he was playing for Tobacco Road last year. And he remembered me because I was the only Greenville United fan, that followed the team to the away game. Yeah, I'm such a mess at, soccer games. But I mean, hey, we love it. It's about this place. Yes, moving on to the last news on the day.
Yes, high school basketball standouts announced college commitments.
Yes, 3 JH Rose basketball standouts are taking their talents to college. Justin Grimes is going to UNC Pembroke. TJ Brown is going to Louisburg, and Malachi Green will be playing at Pitt Community College. Rose had a strong 23-5 season and reached the state quarterfinals. Track star Joseph McRae of D.H. Conley is headed to Livingstone College, while Green Central guard Dontres Evans will play for Shaw University. Meanwhile, Rose Girls Lacrosse wrapped up a stellar season, falling just short in the state semifinals with a 17 to 3 record. Yes. So that is all, guys. Today on our Pitt Community News Recap, presented by Carolina Arthritis Center. So this week, here's the very fun part. This week on Pitt Perspectives, we are diving into a very powerful theme. Our stories matter. How local narratives can transform a county. And at this point, I think our phone lines are open. You can call us to share your stories with us. 252-756-2008. Yes. So what do you guys think, guys? Let's get to it.
Today's topic and today's theme is a very, very interesting one. I mean, for me personally, because I know that storytelling is not just about history. It's about identity, right?
Yes.
And there's a way that storytelling, and we're having this conversation earlier, and Patrick was also talking about how it's important, how it's woven into our personalities, our identity as a people. And it's not just about the history or the historical facts of it. Is the importance and the relevance to how it connects people together. For example, in rural counties like ours, where communities are tight knit and heritage runs deep, our stories hold the power to revive, to reconnect, and reimagine what's possible.
Yeah,
for us as a people.
that's very true. And think about it, right? From the tobacco fields in Grifton to the drum circles in Uptown Greenville, Pitt County is laid with stories of resilience, migration, tradition, and transformation. And so some of these stories are told, but many are still waiting to be heard. So do not hesitate to call us and let us know.
Yeah,
your stories.
that's pretty important. And I mean, I think like I mentioned earlier on, people don't realize or people don't think about it sometimes in any conscious way how the stories we tell stories are how we make sense of the world. When we come back, we're still on Awesome Radio. We'll continue with the stories.
Hello, my name is Dr. Wiley Nifong. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
The Western Scrub Jay. I was taking my science class on a virtual reality bird watching expedition. All of a sudden, Charlie Kane shouts, "Arr! Arr!" He had spotted the elusive black swift, a bird rarely seen in the wild. For a brief moment, Charlie had not the eyes of a 9-year-old boy. He had the eyes of an eagle.
Teachers just have better work stories. Find out how creative teaching can be at teachdfw.org. Brought to you by Teach and the Advocates.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We're still live on Awesome Radio Network, and it's still your favorite weekend crew, Pitt Perspectives, with Victor Ihuka, AY Odunaike, and Patrick Mbaya Lufulwabo. Did I call you well? Bro, my
mean,
South
you're trying
Africa
your
is
best.
improving. Yeah,
Yeah,
Lufulwabo.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes. So just before we went on that break, we were just introducing our conversation for today about stories and how narratives, shape rural places. I was going to say that our stories aren't just facts. Our stories are living memories that shape how we see our place in the world.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? AY?
These stories are very important. So research has shown that rural revival is not just about dollars or just roads. So it's not just about the infrastructure,
The physical
of it.
infrastructure, yeah.
It's more about belonging. It's more about sense of connection. It's more about attachment.
Yep.
When people feel connected to their place through culture and memory, they invest more in that place. And storytelling is what builds that gap. And I was going to give an example, and I know I've mentioned him on this show.
Me,
maybe
right?
You. I mean, on this show a couple of times, and that's Kunle Afolayan. He's one of the biggest.
Say it slowly.
Kunle Afolayan.
Who is Kunle Afolayan?
He's one of the, like I was
Biggest
going to say, biggest
filmmakers,
filmmakers in Nigeria.
Africa, even.
In Africa, yes,
Yeah.
actually. And he just recently commissioned his film studio, his film village and resort,
Oh, wow.
somewhere in Komu, Oyo State, which is a very rural area.
Oh, wow.
In fact, in terms of being rural, I would say it's even more rural than EC and
Greenville.
than Greenville,
Right.
And it's a very remote place, right?
Right.
However, one thing that connects him to that place is the fact that that's his mom's hometown. Like his
Oh,
mom is
okay.
from
Oh, wow.
your state, and that sense of attachment is why someone will take something that big and put in that place, right? So, and this is from the start. That was what I was getting into. That storytelling is what bridges that gap.
Right.
There are stories about that place that his mom, his grandparents would have told him
Right.
about that place that gives him that sense of attachment to that place. People drive all the way from Lagos, which is about, say, 6 hours to that
wow.
place,
6 hours.
just to see what's there, to relax there. And of course, filmmakers go there to make their movies, right? So it has opened that place up to a lot of commercial activities and a lot of tourism, as it were. People, not just from Lagos, people come out even from outside the country, actually.
wow.
Because recently I was on their page and I saw people all the way from Canada who came in to see the place, and people come across the world like that to just be in that place. What has built that sense of connection is the stories that we're told about.
Right.
This is our roots. This is where we're from. And
This is who we are.
This is who we are. And that's what we're trying to do here too, where people, finish from, say, ECU, or people who lived here, who have gone to, bigger
Other
cities
places,
and
yeah.
other places, who feel that sense of attachment and want to come back here to do
Right.
something meaningful.
Yeah, and I think just to latch onto that, I think when we talk about stories too, stories are not always easy. Like I guess what I wanted to say, stories are not always nice. That sometimes stories are painful, but
Yeah.
then it helps us remember maybe what past we are coming back from and never to repeat certain things.
Yes.
And then I was also trying to mention the fact that a lot of times we don't have a sense, when you're going through life in the moment, it's easier to overlook, the stories in the moment. Because think about it, we are living through history right now, for better or worse.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stories we are even talking about at some point used to be, in the moment for those
Yes,
folks then.
yes.
You see what I mean? So it's important to be, tell our stories. I guess maybe it's your grandmother's cooking, it could be it's a coach, maybe it's a teacher, a neighbor, maybe it's about how you got here. Whatever it is, your stories matter. So, like I said earlier, our phone lines are open. You can call us, you can email us, you can, I think we have some listener stories too. We'll share at some
Yes,
point on the
absolutely.
show. And I think one story that's stands out to me is how Greenville grew into a center for international medical training, or how Aiden Grifton High School, which was born out of desegregation, became more than just a school. And like I said earlier, it's easy to think about these things as mere historical facts. They are not. These things are living memories that continue to shape how we see ourselves. And this place we call home, because at this point we call this place home, Yeah.
Yes, yes. I mean, a very, very interesting example you gave. And also, you can also look at Brody School of
Right.
Medicine at ECU. It was founded in 1977, and it didn't just train doctors, it actually changed lives, right? It focused on, producing physicians who stay. And that is very important. That is at the heart of what we really
Yeah,
doing. That's,
service, regional transformation.
transformation, and of course talent retention.
Yep.
So people who train here and looking at the way the stories are bridging the gap, they want to stay here and then serve this community. that is at the core of what ECU, is doing. And people also forget that Brody ranks, like top 10,
Oh, wow.
10% of U.S. medical schools for graduating doctors who go into rural primary care. So, I mean, this is not just success, as it were. This is actually service. This is building community, right? Building this place up into what it should be.
Yeah, and the truth about it is, ECU's motto is severe, right? Which means
So what?
severe. Is it? It's a
No,
Latin
I'm
word.
messing with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a Latin word that means to serve, right? So
Yeah,
it's at the
yeah.
core of ECU to give out service.
Mhm,
And so and what's amazing is how Brody connects Pitt County, right, to the world. Brody offers international clinical rotations. It also offers students who go here rather turn out to go and learn in places like Peru, Ghana, all these, and then they come back and practice here. So bringing even more tradition and more, more resources to Pitt County, and that's
Yes.
what makes the story even more amazing. And that's what makes Pitt County amazing as it is, and that's how a local story becomes a global one.
Yeah. So it's interesting too. And special shout out to the legend Andrew A. Best, and the lady Miss Irons. I remember some
Oh,
of the
the Irons
folks.
building?
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
Irons
of the
building,
folks
yeah.
who worked really hard. Yeah, because I heard it was a big fight, as it were, to
Yes.
bring this Brody School of Medicine here. I mean, think about it. In the moment, this thing was
just
people's
every
lived
day, yeah.
experience. You see what I mean? But think about how much people's lives or even the region has been changed, has been shaped, in a very positive way from, the events and, the actions of these men, who we hear about too. Maybe it could be in buildings or on roads and all. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think the same goes for Aiden Grifton High. So in 1971, Aiden Grifton High merged three different schools during the heart of desegregation. It merged Aiden High School, South Aiden High School, and Grifton High School into one integrated institution. And not long after it opened, someone bombed the auditorium. Wow, that's hard history. But the school didn't close. Again, stories and resilience. It held on. And over time, the school became a symbol of community pride and unity. And that's what resilience looks like. You remember I said earlier how stories are not always fun. Some stories are painful, but then these are our stories or whoever's stories, at the end of the day.
And these stories are what shape our identity,
For sure.
because we find that sense of attachment in our roots. So like you mentioned, resilience, looking at it as not just adversity
Right.
in the moment,
Right.
but overcoming that adversity. That's what builds that resilience into us as a people. So when we think about our history, we think about our stories, it gives us that fortitude to want to keep pressing forth.
Right.
Like, you can tell yourself that, people who came before me went through difficult circumstances,
inspiring.
and they were able to overcome it. And this is some of the things that strengthens us as a people. They also remind us. Okay, so I think we'll have to go on this break. We'll be back shortly.
On Pitt
Don't go nowhere.
Perspective.
Hello, my name is Hayden. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
From the Pacific Justice Institute, this is The Legal Edge, defending your rights as a Christian, a parent, and a citizen. Here's Brad Dacus.
Right now, Pacific Justice Institute is facing urgent legal threats to religious liberty, and we need your help to stand strong. Want to make a bigger impact for freedom? Become a monthly donor today. Your consistent support ensures we can respond quickly when Christians are silenced, churches are threatened, or families are under fire. Every donation is 100% tax deductible, and every gift helps PJI provide critical legal defense, always free of charge to those we serve. Go to pji.org/donate to become a monthly partner.
Learn more about our ministry and get exclusive email updates by registering for the Legal Insider at pji.org. Remember the website pji.org.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You're still live on Awesome Radio, and it's still your favorite weekend crew. It's still Pete Perspectives, the show where we share stories, celebrate culture, and inspire community. And it's still me, your favorite voice on the radio, Victor Ihuka, and I have Odunaike, and I also have the half amazing, half annoying Patrick Mbaya Luful Wabo. Yes, the South African. Yes, and we're talking about stories. I mean, I've had and how stories shapes, how stories are vital to rural, revitalization, and how, infrastructure is not just, the roads and the lands and all of those things, but also the stories that shape who we are as a person. I mean, it could be the stories about how people moved here. It could be stories about really anything. And I know it could be a story like the one I've also heard, um, a memory of when Pitt County put together after Hurricane Floyd back in '99. Um, I remember I did this for a class project in the MPA program at ECU. We had to look at the responses of government officials and local leaders around the time. I mean, I heard and I've seen pictures, and it was really wild at the time. Anybody that lived through that experience remembers how that storm wrecked homes, devastated roads, and pushed the Tar River past 500-year flood levels. That's wild. But I remember what I remember most too from the project, and even just from my readings and from stories too, is how people showed up for each other. Neighbors helping neighbors, churches turning into shelters, volunteers handing out supplies and parking lots. That resilience, that's the soul of this place. That's the soul of this place.
Yes. So, like we mentioned earlier, I think it was Victor that was saying that we actually have, some listener stories.
Okay. Oh yeah, you want to read one of
Yeah,
that?
I mean,
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
because you mentioned
Yes,
the
Hurricane Floyd.
So
Yeah.
I actually have a story here from Miss Lillian, and she says,
Miss Lillian in Bellator.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
yeah. She says, I remember during Hurricane Floyd, the bridge out near our end of County Home Road was nearly washed away. My father used to drive his old Ford truck across it every day to bring groceries to families who couldn't get to town. Folks started leaving thank you notes and canned goods in the bed of his truck. No name, no fanfare. That little back road bridge became a lifeline, and I'll never forget the way the whole community rallied with nothing but love and faith between us. That's what we mean when we say rural resilience.
that's heartwarming. I mean, oh,
Yeah.
I'm almost getting emotional. Yeah, to think about, and I
It is.
think rural places get a lot of stick for not having some of the things big cities have. Actually collaborated with shout out to Dr. Crystal Chambers at the College of Education at ECU. We worked on a paper, and the idea was around rural cultural wealth. So typically when people think about rural areas, they think about it from deficit perspectives, brain drain or low access to, I mean, there is no broadband connectivity in some places in Pitt County. Or I mean, a lot of different things as far as, deficits, mindedness. But the idea sort of spins that on its head and thinks about rural areas from a strengths perspective. I mean,
Yeah.
think about the things that make rural areas rural areas. For instance, I mean, the idea that there are experiences and ways of being in rural areas that are really positive. I mean, think about resourcefulness. Think about being able to form strong community bonds. I mean, something like Miss Lillian in Bellator was writing about, things like, talking about how the community rallied, together with nothing but love and
Yeah.
faith between us.
Yeah.
These are things you find in rural places. Because I mean, if a place has so much resources, chances are people wouldn't care about each other as much, because I mean there is no reason to care about each other that much. You see what I mean? So rural places also, I mean, you would hear the most, I mean, when they say it takes a village to train a child, I think, I mean, literally the village, evokes memories of rural places, right? So I think it's amazing,
I also have a story, of how ECU became a beacon of education in
Right.
in the region. Back in 1907, Greenville established the East Carolina Teachers Training School, and that decision changed the entire trajectory of Eastern North Carolina.
Right.
Now, from training teachers to becoming East Carolina University, that move planted a seed that is still growing.
Yes,
As
still
you-
growing.
As you can see,
Yes,
that's
still
that
growing.
same seed
Yep.
give birth to people like us
Yeah.
coming all the way from
Yeah.
across the Atlantic to come here. And I think I mentioned
Yeah,
this
across the
before.
Pacific.
Huh?
Across the Pacific, Atlantic, and India.
Yeah, I mean, it's across the Atlantic.
you
if
get
you're
for-
coming
for
from
us,
Africa,
right?
well, my part of
Yeah.
For me,
Africa.
I'm
And-
speaking for
Oh,
me.
yeah?
It's, 3 oceans.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
keep
that's
going.
interesting,
Mhm.
right? So I mean that's really interesting because as popular as places like New York or LA or I didn't go there, right? I came straight down to this is the first place I'm landing here,
To G Vegas.
right? And why? Because there is something that was planted here in 1907 that is still giving back to this community,
Right.
and that's why people like us are here. And that move alone, also made Greenville not just a town but a launch pad for learning and leadership.
Yeah, and that
Yes.
is true. Stories really do shape us. And I don't know if you guys know. Do you know about the story of the hare and the tortoise?
The hare and the tortoise, the
Yes.
one about
I must have heard it.
going on a race, and
Yes,
then
yes, exactly.
the tortoise the hare gets distracted,
Yes.
and then okay.
Yes. So it's a very good. So the first time I heard the story was in fourth grade. So this was 2014. Fourth grade. It was we used to have these English for our English classes. We have these
Gen Z.
these storybooks, and anywhere you go in the world, well, I'll say that because everywhere I've been, I've at least heard of the story of the hare and the tortoise. And this story, is one of the fundamental stories used to teach us about resilience.
Right.
So the whole point of the story is that if you have resilience, even if you are at a disadvantage,
Right.
that works out in the end.
So just do like a Cliff Notes version of the story for
So the
any of
story
the
is
listeners who don't
there's
know
a
this.
race between the hare and the tortoise, right? And the hare is very cocky, like it feels like overconfident because the hare knows it's very fast. And the tortoise is known to be one of the most slowest animals in the world. And so they go on a race, and the tortoise believes it can win the race, even though the hare is putting it down and saying, "You're not on my level. I'm very fast, and I'm going to leave you in my dust." But then the moral of the story is the hare goes and lives a huge distance between itself and the tortoise and takes a nap under a tree and says, even if I sleep, the tortoise is not going to catch up to me. And funny enough, the hare oversleeps and the tortoise overtakes him and wins the race. And by the time he realizes it and wakes up and tries to close the gap, it's too late.
Oh wow.
Yes. And
Wow,
so that
that's
teaches,
interesting.
yeah.
Even though the oversleeping part sounds like Patrick's, but
Anyways,
yeah, I mean, I get, yeah. I'm
yeah, the
kidding.
moral of the story is resilience, right? Resilience works out in
Right,
the end.
right. You know what's interesting is I've actually seen, like, I think on Instagram, a video
Mm-hmm.
of a real life, I think it was a rabbit and a tortoise
Oh.
on a race, and something like that happened
Yeah.
too, because the rabbit gets distracted, runs after some time and then starts looking sideways,
Mm-hmm.
and before you know it, the tortoise was able to crawl. And it's interesting how these stories stay with us. I'm sure people around here has had stories. So I mean, like we said, we also want to hear from you all too. We want to hear your stories. We have a bunch of listener stories. We'll read out to you all too. Earlier we mentioned the big institutions, the Brody School of Medicine, Aiden Grifton, but sometimes it's also the quieter stories that tell us the most about who we are. You get what I mean? It's the quieter stories, like the story of the old Roxy Theater in Greenville. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
from I mean what we were able to gather in the course of preparing for this, we saw that it opened in 1938 and served as a cultural sanctuary for African Americans during segregation. Families would dress up, meet neighbors, and see films together. And mentioning that's something that's
Yeah, that's
quite,
nostalgic,
yeah,
right?
quite deep in it. And then when it shut down in the 70s, it could have been forgotten, but the community brought it back as a performing arts space.
Right.
That act of reclaiming space, that's cultural identity in motion. That is what stories can do.
Yeah, and the truth about it is, what you just mentioned leads to one of the stories that we got. The listener stories that we got,
Yeah.
and this one is titled "Sunday Nights at the Roxy," and so this one reads, "This
Comes
next."
from Darren in
Yeah.
Uptown Greenville.
Oh yeah. It also comes from Darren in Uptown Greenville, and it reads, "When I was a kid, my grandmother would take me to Sunday night showings at the old Roxy Theater. She always wore her church hat. I didn't understand the movies half the time, but I remembered the sounds of folks laughing in sync, the smell of popcorn, and the way the ushers would let the neighborhood kids sit on the steps when it was full. When they reopened the building years later, I brought my own daughter. She sat in the same spot I used to. That was full circle for me." So what we can see is that culture is also about stories. So for
Obviously.
Darren, his grandmother wore her
Wow.
church hat, right? And so stories really do shape the
That's
way we live,
amazing. So
and
it's
yeah.
making me think, what's one thing back home, either any of your parents or some older folk did in their own time, or that you all participated in, you know, in, during your own time with the person. So, for instance, Darren is talking about how
His grandmother
his
took him to
grandmother
the-
took him to
the theater.
the theater at the time, and how at this time he's now going to the same the same places
Yeah.
with the mom,
Yeah.
Yeah,
with
so
the daughter. I mean,
Yeah, I
So-
think I was thinking the most common one for all of us is taking us to church.
yeah.
and-
But my
and up till
grandfather
now-
wasn't a Christian, so
Yeah, I mean, up to now, we still go to church
Yeah.
because
Right.
it was something that were shown by our progenitors. For me, there's one thing I really remember is a particular movie, to be specific, that I saw at my grandfather's place. It's titled Shaoroide.
What?
Shaoroide.
That's a Yoruba word.
Yeah, yeah.
What does it mean?
It's like brass. That's Ide means brass.
Okay.
So Shaoroide is a drum.
Oh,
A
okay.
talking drum
Okay,
that
that
has
makes sense.
brass on the edge.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay, that makes
and it's
sense.
a very, very, very. In fact, in I think 2018 or so, I started a tradition where I get to see that movie once every year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've been doing it consistently since then. It's one of the stories that shaped my childhood, and I saw it first at my grandfather's place. So anytime we went back to his place, maybe for Christmas or anything, we would all see the movie together. And it's not just for me personally. It's also one of the inspiration I get when it comes to being a filmmaker, for example, or telling stories, for example, because that particular story was more like I won't call it a satire, but it was more like a a kind of metaphor of some sort, telling the story of Nigeria as a country and how our democracy came to be.
Oh, wow.
But it was it was woven in culture and tradition. It's so I mean, if you have the time, I think you should see it. It's
Shaworide.
Shaworide. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, you should
actually.
share the link with us sometime.
Yeah, so I mean, these are some of the like you asked for traditions, and that's something I got from my grandfather, and personally, at I think about 5-7 years ago now, I decided consciously after that movie being a part of my childhood to now make it a tradition for myself that I'm going
Right.
to also bring my children
Right.
into.
That's interesting. So something I mentioned when Patrick was talking about the church was, I mean, my grandfather was a tribal chief, so he wasn't a Christian. He was, an African traditional religion practitioner. But my dad, being a preacher and a Christian, he would carry me on his head, to church as a kid. Now I'm thinking maybe I should give birth already, so I can carry my son too on the so I can carry my son too on the head and go go to church. So talking about church,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean some of these stories, says we remember who we are. That's the essence of it.
Yeah, man, I love that, because it says we remember who we are, and
Yes.
when we remember, we rebuild.
Yep.
And another one like that is a Red Banks Primitive Baptist Church.
Wow.
The church was burned during the Civil War, totally destroyed, but the congregation rebuilt it, and it's still standing today, not just as a building, but as a symbol of spiritual and communal resilience.
That's impressive. The Civil War was like in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So I think that's primitive Red Bank's Primitive Baptist Church now has been, I think it's one of the historical, I think it was the Historical Society or something. That building is, of so much historical importance. And like I said earlier, it's easy to take for granted our lived experiences, but after the fact, you realize how maybe monumental or how impactful that moment was. But in the moment, it's very easy, because I mean, every day seems to be like every other day too. So, which is why, stories are very, very important. And there are a lot of stories that never make the front page, but they shape us, like the Greenville and Raleigh Plank Road. Have you all heard of that?
Yeah, I think in the mid 1800s.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly. The road connected Greenville to Wilson back in the 1850s. So imagine a plank road. Can you imagine how, rural this place was to have a plank road, the road also helped farmers, freedmen and merchants get their goods out. It was literally built plank by plank, mile by mile, and even though it's long gone, part of its routes still exists in today's roadways. I always say history doesn't vanish; it evolves. Oh, we should put that on some on some frame. History doesn't vanish;
Yeah,
it
actually,
evolves.
it does. It does, and
You
it's the
know.
way it always keeps coming back to repeat itself.
Right.
Yeah, but just in different forms. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and speaking of evolving, think about Trenton's Creek, right? Small Civil War skirmish back in the 1862, right here in Pitt County, and it didn't make national headlines or anything, like maybe the Gettysburg. But locals still remember it because it happened on our land, because
land.
the ancestors of this place were a part of it, and that memory just lingers. It really does.
Yes, yes, and these are the kind of stories that shape our identities. And I mentioned earlier how there's that sense of, like you mentioned, resilience. When you think about how people from the past have overcome this kind of adversity, helps you to be able to approach with whatever it is you're facing in the moment with some sense of purpose and with that belief that yes, you can actually overcome them in the moment. They also remind us of what we've come through, and that's why storytelling matters. And for me, that's one of the reasons why I chose filmmaking as a medium of artistic expression that I really love personally, because, and I've mentioned this also on this show before, a lot of things I know about America, for example, even before I came
Yeah,
here,
from the
things I
movies.
saw in the
That's amazing to think about. Like I
Yeah.
tell people how I used to think it snows everywhere in the US. It's from movies. How I used to think you see skyscrapers everywhere. It's from the movies. And when people think about Africa and how it's only in their mind, it's only poverty and famine and all that. It's from the screens too. Stories, whether it's written, whether it's in film, whether it's told, stories are powerful.
Yes.
Stories are really, really, really powerful. And that's, why we're asking folks, what are your stories? The ones your grandmother told you, the ones hidden in the bricks of an old schoolhouse or the benches of a barber shop. Hey, reach out to us. If you're after the show, you can also email us at hello.pitperspectives@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. You know, would like to, your stories matter not just because they are yours, but because they remind us of all that Pitt County is not just a place on the map. It's a living, breathing archive of people, of culture, and great. Maybe it's a neighbor who kept the block together after a storm. Maybe it's your old high school coach who believed in you. I mean, talking about believing in you, I think about Dr. Ziga and how he
Yeah.
is very affirming, and how much, he's been such a huge influence, not just in my life, but I imagine in all of us. Maybe it's the local diner that's been serving three generations. We'll continue with the last stretch after the break. Stay tuned on Awesome Radio.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Celebrating Juneteenth, Wednesday, June 18th, from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at 252 Main Street, Winterville. It's Market on the Square in Winterville. Vendors, food trucks, games, music. Help Winterville celebrate Juneteenth on Wednesday, June 18th, 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at 252 Main Street, Winterville. Visit the Winterville Chamber at wintervillechamber.com/MOTS. Market on the Square. We're going to have a great time at the Juneteenth celebration Wednesday, June 18th at 252 Main Street from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Winterville. A slice of the good life.
Yes, welcome back. Welcome back to Awesome Radio Network 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU. And it's still Pete's Perspectives, the show where we share stories, celebrate culture, and inspire community here in Pitt County and the surrounding areas, here in Eastern North Carolina. And we're in the last stretch of the show. I mean, it's been an amazing show, talking about stories and, how it shapes, our lives, and how rural places are revived, by stories. I think I have a story here. Let's, get through some of the listener stories we have here. This one is from Amina in Farmville. Amina is actually I think a Muslim name from Nigeria, but this is a different spelling. This is Ameeenah. It looks Ghanaian too, the way it's written. Yeah, so from Amina in Farmville. After my mom passed, I moved back to take care of my granddad. Aww. Every afternoon, we'd sit on the porch and listen to folks walk by on Main Street, talking, greeting, laughing. One day, an older man stopped and introduced himself and said he remembered my mom teaching him Sunday school. Wow. We talked for almost an hour. That small moment helped me grieve, helped me heal. I realized then that Pitt County doesn't let people disappear. Our stories live on in each other. Wow. That's beautiful, and I think that's exactly why we do this show. This is powerful. I think I have a similar experience. So my mom is a midwife, a nurse. I mean, she's been at it long before I was born. And I also remember people walking up to me to tell me about how my mom delivered, their kids, as a midwife. Actually, I have one of my closest friends in Nigeria, a married friend. I didn't realize all his kids were delivered by my mom.
Wow.
Yeah, even while we were friends, until he was like, Your last name is sounding familiar." And then over conversation, I told, "Oh, my mom is a matron at Living World Mission Hospital." Really? That's where my wife gave birth to all the kids. Oh, who is your mom? And then, all of those things. Yeah, so I can imagine how emotional it is to, think about something like Amina's experience about how a man, an older man introduced himself and remembered her mom teaching him Sunday school. And I think stories like these also changes how you see, how she'd see her mom too. And I mean, I've always grown up with the idea of service, how service is life's one of, life's greatest, things to do. and we are in a place where service is,
Absolutely.
the watchword, and I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful. And
Mhm.
like I said, that's exactly how why we do this. Do we
Yeah.
have time for a couple more
I think
stories?
yeah, I think I have one here
Okay.
also. This is from
Mm-hmm.
Miss Tasha in Grifton.
Mm-hmm.
It says back in the 90s, I was always the last kid out of the house,
Wow, Patrick.
running late,
Go ahead.
running late, shoes untied, homework barely stuffed in my backpack. But Mr. Howard, our school bus driver, would wait every morning, same time, same spot. He'd tap the horn twice and give me a smile like he had all the time in the world.
Oh wow.
Years later, I found out he was making extra stops just to check on kids who were going through it at home. I thought he was just waiting for me. Turns out he was watching out for all of us.
Wow.
Now, this is the kind of story or the kind of everyday heroism that makes a rural community feel like a family.
Yeah, that
That's
sounds amazing.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think
Man.
we have time for one more.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
So this one is story circles at the corner store, and this one comes from Julius in Winterville, and this one reads: There used to be an old corner store near Railroad Street. I think it's a barber shop now. Every Friday evening, after folks cashed their checks or closed shop for the week, you'd find men and women sitting out front, sipping sweet tea, telling stories, tall tales, war stories, church testimonies, you name it. I learned about my great uncle's farm, my cousin's wedding in a snow hill, and even the history of the land we lived on.
Hmm.
That stoop was my classroom. That circle, that was culture being passed down in real time.
Wow. That's the power of storytelling. You don't even realize you're inheriting something until years later. So I'd like to get through just this one and we do the weekly inspiration. So this story comes from Miss Edna in Bethel. After the mills closed in the late 80s, things got real quiet in our town. Folks moved away, storefronts emptied out, but there was a group of women, my mother was among them, who started quilting together every Wednesday night at the community center. They called it Piercing Hope. Oh wow, Piercing Hope. Each square told a story, a farm, a church, a wedding, a goodbye. When they finished the quilts, they hung it in the town hall. People came just to look at it. That quilt reminded us we still had roots, even when things felt like they were falling apart. So sometimes a story isn't just spoken, it's sown, remembered, and wrapped around the whole town. Ooh, fellas, it's been a good day. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's been an amazing,
Yes,
conversation.
yes.
Really
So,
shows.
as we close out today's episode, we leave you with these thoughts. When we tell our stories, we remember who we are. And when we remember who we are, we become who we were meant to be.
Yeah, rural places like Pitt County are rich with wisdom, tradition, and courage. Never underestimate the power of your story to spark change.
Yeah, keep showing up, keep speaking up, and keep lifting up the people and places you love.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to all the stories we'll tell about this place. I mean, I have stories for days about Pitt County and the people here, the people we've come to love so much. We'll see you guys next week on Pitt Perspectives. Until then, stay rooted, stay inspired, and stay proud. It's awesome radio. Bye.